Hi, I'm Spencer, and I'm going to be giving you a bit of an overview of TG Shan's music video scenes. She's an artist from Christchurch, and we got New Zealand On Air funding to make this video. So thank you, New Zealand On Air. I actually ended up quitting my job because I got COVID and didn't have the energy to do this on top of a 40-hour-a-week job doing heavy lifting and stuff. It's quite a physical job, and I figured I'd make this my full-time job while I worked on it. So it was mostly done using a couple of bits of software: Blender, which is free, EB Synth, which is free, and After Effects for the compositing, although I probably could have done that in Blender as well. So the artist, Anne-Marie Duff, had a demo version of the song which wasn't too different from the finished version, and she had a very clear idea about what she kind of wanted, which was great. She sent me this kind of overview of style and elements that she wanted, and bits where the music would sync up with certain things, and the lyrics would sync up with certain things. So like this bit here where a cosmic egg rises out of the ground, and she just like mocked this up in I can't remember what it's called, whatever, something that's like Photoshop but different, and sent me the lyrics and kind of a good mood board of things that she was interested in. So these are kind of the main things. She was like, I want it to be painted, looking at the Fauvists and the cosmic egg and some psychedelic lens flare kind of effects at the start. She also sent me a link to this video here, which is rotoscoped. Big fan of that effect. Ooh, raunchy. And I was considering doing it with the photocopier in the studio, but the time it would take scanning individual things would be a mission. But hopefully one day I can get that photocopier going so it's scanning things like that, because that's the super time-consuming bit for me. But we had a bit of back and forth. I was like, if you're interested in that, maybe we could do some rotoscoping, sort of like Yellow Submarine, the Beatles. And before we found out that we had New Zealand On Air funding, thinking about ways that we could achieve this without having to spend thousands and thousands and thousands of hours painting over every single image and what the original footage would be. So the main kind of idea of the video that Anne-Marie was really into is that it would be Banks Peninsula, and that we'd be flying into Lyttelton Harbour. And Lyttelton has a place in my heart because I lived there for a few years. I ran Rotten Radio, the Lyttelton radio station, so I went through and got some images of that. And I was also looking at this guy Nicolas de Stael, who's a Russian painter. So that was another big influence that I was talking with her about at the beginning. But I had this idea of taking Google Earth and seeing if I could get a virtual camera to fly through it like a drone and animate over the top of that. But then I thought we could use a piece of software called EB Synth, which this guy Joel Haver first introduced me to, with the way that he makes his videos by getting the computer to do some of the rotoscoping. So he'd draw the style frames, and then the computer program EB Synth would kind of extrapolate that data across the frames based on a keyframe. It's similar to this style that I was very interested in when I was at art school, that my mate Fawn Richards and I did some stuff with, called data moshing. So here's an example of that. And there's some artists out there who are doing really quite interesting stuff with it. And I thought it would fit well with taking things and abstracting them in a painterly way, like Nicolas de Stael and the Fauvists. So yeah, this guy here, Thomas Doherty, he posts some quite interesting effects that he gets with this method. So yeah, you're basically taking what's called an iframe, and that's what the following frames are basing their data on, and so it is basically extrapolating the data from that original frame across the next frames. But if you remove iframes, you can get these interesting glitchy painterly effects that I'm a big fan of. David O'Reilly was kind of a trailblazer for this, and also an influence in his low poly style, which I'm also a big fan of. Another influence for this was just more in approach than style, I guess. Was this band Candy Claws. I was listening to them quite a lot, and in their recording of this album, they took something that was actually very high fidelity and very well recorded, and kind of putting it through a series of effects to kind of degrade the sound in a way, or maybe not degrade, but change the sound to get more of a shoegaze, dream pop, ethereal effect. Also, speaking of Littleton, I wanted to include some spots in Littleton, even if it's not super clear to the viewer. So I included this venue here in part of the video, which is the Littleton Coffee Co., where the radio station used to be, just downstairs from here. This is the band PHF. We're also a big influence in making kind of an interesting take on some lo-fi aesthetics, I guess, or putting it to using it to great effect, essentially. So, Littleton, lo-fi, shoegaze, dream pop, these things. So what I initially did as a test was I went into Google Earth and moved a virtual camera through the space around Banks Peninsula, and then put it through EB Synth using a style frame that I painted. And this is the effect that I got for the kind of first test. I was very thrilled with it because it's everything I wanted and more. Although extremely saturated, and it took me a while to kind of really dial in the camera angles. So I was thinking, if I could use this effect, seeing as it works so well, but really hone it by bringing all this Google Earth data into Blender and have 3D models, I could move a 3D camera through the space and that would be fantastic. So I don't know how clear it is, but this is Banks Peninsula, and it's got basically a painting that I've done over it. So I got into Blender, and hang on, I also made a very rough overview of what the shot list would be for an animatic, and so I could get an idea of how much work and what things would need to be done for the video, and it's super rough because it was just for me, and my shorthand is clear enough for me that I could see what it was, even though it was very rough. So what I managed to do after a little bit of mucking around, a little bit of investigation, was using a plugin called Blossom, that one there, BLOSM. I managed to extract Google Earth, or I think it's Google Earth data, but it might have been from a few other places that do surveying, and basically get a map of Lyttelton with all the geometry of all the buildings. Hang on, I'll do it on this one here. And so, we've got Banks Peninsula, and we've got Lyttelton. I cut down on like the sheer amount of buildings because there's more around here and up the hill and stuff. And I also cleared away the port as well. Tried to get rid of as much kind of stuff that I didn't need, basically. So I managed to get it into Blender, and that building, the Lyttelton Coffee Co., I even put a little bit of extra modeling into it. Not heaps, just a little bit more. So that was that. And that took a little while to figure out, but it's pretty amazing that we have these resources at our disposal. It's even got all the train tracks and stuff. So the next thing I did was I made a rough animatic in Blender, brought in the song, had some grease pencil objects for when there's going to be birds flying, and basically put all the descriptions that Anne-Marie had sent me, and put what do we call them, markers as well in here, and basically used a rough version of the EB Synth footage, and and then for the Cosmic Egg section, made a super rough version of that out of metaballs, grease pencil hands, and then for some of this I was not entirely clear what it was going to be, so it just says abstract line animations. So having got a rough animatic, I animated a camera flying through the scene. Ooh. And coming over the ridge over there. So using motion paths, I could properly get a really good, clear look at where the camera would be moving. Hang on, I'll switch this one here. Yeah, there we go. And I textured all the buildings so that when I put it through EB Synth, I could have extra texture to have it extrapolate data from. After a few tests, I found that if it was a flat surface, it wouldn't work as well. So if you look at this, it actually has brush strokes that I put on there with a kind of canvas texture. So animated the camera moving up here. You can see all the keyframes here, and I used a lot of markers to be clear where the style frames are and that sort of thing. Move up here. I had to retime this quite a few times to get it just right, because it either lingered on the people too long, or I don't know, a bunch of other reasons. It wasn't quite straight enough, wasn't smooth or floaty enough. And these people here are grease pencil objects. So if we move around them, you'll see that they're actually flattish. And there's all the keyframes for them, like when these guys cheers their beers. Cheers. 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 For some reason he's holding a green thing, but I don't know how clear it is that he's holding that in the finished version. Anyway, the next bit here, camera flying over this, and in here, and over the train. And that's to go with a sound element from the finished song, where it sounds kind of like a train going past. And I actually already had a model of a shipping container, so I brought that in and used it. And I figured, because I'm going to be painting over it and it'll be quite kind of abstract, I didn't need to put in heaps of detail, but I put in more than enough. Yeah, so got the camera flying around, down, and then through this window, and then more grease pencil objects. You might recognize them from before, it's the same people. And then this is where it looks up at the sky for the cosmic egg section. So for the cosmic egg, I used a material that I bought from the clay dough set, which was mostly for claymation type stuff, but I found this one was great, and then I honed it in a little bit in the texture nodes editor, shading editor, and I also used this video feedback that I recorded off a TV feeding back into itself. Yeah, and UV'd that onto this very basic low poly geometry. And then after a bit of consultation with the artist, really honed in the timing of this cosmic egg. And then the guy who grabs it, grease pencil object, and oh, that arm doesn't look very good, but that's outside of the shot anyway, so it doesn't really matter. And I actually put a armature on this to animate the arms and the hands coming in like that in 3D space. Haven't worked too much with rigs like this, especially not rigging grease pencil objects, but it was quite effective. And if you look, there's the camera. So if we switch to here, yeah, that's basically what we end up with in the final thing. And it fades to yellow and goes into a bit that's very much influenced by the paintings of Nicolas de Stael. Also, speaking of grease pencil objects, here's the birds. Very simple, flappy birds. And then I've actually got a camera moving past them, and just that extra little bit of depth of the camera and the fact that they're offset like that. It's very effective. And I also got this really great add-on, which is a color palette. Yeah, color picker palette. So good. Like switching between your different materials. Something that would be great for for if you're working with grease pencil. And yeah, these all have a few modifiers on them, like a glow or rim light rather, so it adds so much. A bit of noise, opacity, and time offset modifier to ping pong the animation. Yeah. What else do I need to talk about? Oh yeah, so for this musician, Emery Duff, T.G. Shan, she was also doing this other project, which I provided some video assets for that also were used for this. illustrated using Photoshop and some beautiful brushes from True Grit Texture Supply, which I am a fan of. So I basically painted these in Photoshop, and the project it was for is a data visualization software that is going to be they're launching, and it's hooked up to Met Service data. So depending on the weather, it will affect the way that the animations and things operate. So it's got the birds, cloud cover. So if there's more cloud cover, that'll change. If the tides are higher, that'll change the time of day, that sort of thing. So they'll potentially be using it for other data visualization, but it was a fun thing to also be involved with that is kind of tied to this project. And for and also I used this Eevee Synth method for another animation for another TG Shan song called The Cheese, and this was the original illustration, but I'll show you the video. This one here. Using the same method, so making a 3D model and animating it, and then putting it through Eevee Synth and adding more animated elements and fixing it up, basically. The artifacting from Eevee Synth is like one of the things that I love about it. But yeah, also adding some drawn animated elements like the sparkle on that cheese. Yeah. What else? This is my Parc des Princes section that I was working on at the end, based on that painting there, kind of. So the idea was that these things would fly into the scene and then fly out again. And these are all painted up with a texture that I actually painted as well, and then projected onto them, and then put through Eevee Synth, and then added to in Photoshop, and then cut together in After Effects. So yeah, these things flying in and then flying out while the camera also moves around them. So I did a lot of paintings for this, and some of them didn't end up being used, like these ones here, but these are the ones that my animations were based on. And like I said, Eevee Synth extrapolated the data from them, and then I painted over those when I needed to as well. Just really honing in those color combos. What else? File management was huge, because I was exporting so many different image sequences. I had to make sure I could keep track, and so I was using a naming convention of the date, and then what the thing was, and then whether or not it had been put through the other software, and putting them all in this one file. So yeah, as you can see, it was quite a few different exports and renders, and then I I didn't use After Effects super heaps, but I used it for some masking and basically just compositing stuff together in a couple of adjustment layers, and then adding the New Zealand On Air logo. Yeah, and then the whole thing just needed some credits, so I just did that in Blender again with grease pencil, and then yeah, just adding some modifiers, build, noise, opacity, and if you look at the finished version, which is here, also added these elements too. Yeah, so last thing I just wanted to cover was for project management. I used this thing called Obsidian Vault, which was quite good. And every time that I would do something, I'd give it a tick. And as you can see, it's quite a lot. Whoa. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you enjoyed my behind the scenes. Get your mates to make cool music videos for them. Thank you, and take care of yourself. Bye.